The storm drain mess? Yeah, they laughed at me when I warned them about it. HOA President Brent Caldwell Morrison, dripping in designer labels, sneered at me and said, "Garrett's just being dramatic again." Then, they fined me $300 for spreading panic. I begged them for months. Fix the drains before the next big storm hits, or this neighborhood's going to be ruined. But they ignored me, mocked me, and hit me with fines. 6 months later, I'm standing in my driveway, bone dry, sipping my coffee, watching the damage unfold. The air smells of that awful backed-up water. Neighbors are rushing around with shop vacs, tears in their eyes, trying to salvage what they can. And me? Not a drop of water in my basement. They laughed at me. But now they were learning the very expensive lesson about ignoring an engineer's warnings. But let me take you back a bit. About 8 months ago, I moved to Pinehurst Meadows. I'm Garrett Thorne, 48, a municipal drainage engineer who had just buried his wife, Sarah, after her long battle with cancer. I needed a fresh start, somewhere quiet. Pinehurst seemed perfect. 67 homes, all built in 2018. The lawns were pristine, the houses, well, they screamed, "We've made it," but I didn't care about that. I just wanted peace. My modest colonial house didn't exactly fit in next to those McMansions, but that's okay. I wasn't there for the status. I was there to heal. The HOA dues were a hefty $385 a month, red flag number one, but whatever, I could deal with that. Here's the thing about engineers, though. We notice things that most people don't, like how the grass squished underfoot near the storm drains, how some pumps hummed all the time, even after a light rain. The air had this musty, basement smell mixed with overpriced mulch that created a weird funk throughout the neighborhood. Something was off. So, I did what any good engineer would do. I looked into it. The developer, Sunset Vista Construction, had cut corners. I saw wrong slopes, tiny pipes, puddles that sat in gutters for days after rain. Textbook overwhelmed system. I measured the flow rates and calculated a 40% capacity shortfall. I submitted a full engineering assessment, complete with photos, flood projections, the whole thing. But Brent's response? A cold, dismissive email. "We appreciate your concerns, but Sunset Vista assures us everything meets code." Translation: shut up. You're hurting my property sales. And that was just the beginning. The next board meeting? She cut me off after 2 minutes. "We don't need doom and gloom scaring buyers," she said, her laugh sharp, like silverware in a blender. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about engineering. It was about money. Mother Nature decided to give them their first lesson during a moderate thunderstorm. My basement flooded. 4 of my neighbors were hit, too. I documented everything, water levels, backup patterns, the whole timeline. Brent's response? A fine for $150 for installing a French drain on my own property without approval. This was HOA politics at its finest. They don't care about safety. They care about crushing anyone who dares to speak out. Most of my neighbors went silent after that. They were scared of retaliation, worried about their property values. But one neighbor, Tabitha Reeves, a retired city planner, knew the deal. Developers cut corners. The HOA covers it up, and residents get screwed. I kept hearing that sound. The storm drains gurgling, struggling. It sounded like something dying. I'd heard it before during hurricane responses in Louisiana. I knew what was coming. Meanwhile, Brent's listings bragged about superior drainage and flood protection. But I knew the truth. She wasn't ignorant. She was negligent, and it was all about money. She had a financial incentive to ignore the reality of the system, and she was putting all of us at risk. Here's the thing. HOA board members can be held personally responsible if they ignore known safety hazards. Brent didn't know it yet, but she was setting herself up for personal bankruptcy by ignoring the facts. I tried again. I submitted detailed flood risk analysis with photos of the system's inadequacies, begging them to authorize repairs before the storm season. Her response? "Garrett's obsessed with flooding. It's embarrassing for the community image. Then she made the comment that still burns me. Maybe he should move somewhere that appreciates his dramatic personality. Dramatic. Yeah, I was trying to save your basement, Brinth. I was done trying to play by the rules. 2 weeks later, Brinth called an emergency board meeting. She had brought backup a pinstriped attorney named Randolph Sterling, who looked like he charged by the sneer. They were there to discuss disruptive resident behavior. She was trying to paint me as the villain. Her HOA attorney proposed a $500 engineering review fee for anyone who raised drainage complaints. Basically, pay us to be heard. If that wasn't enough, she threw in the threat of legal action for continued harassment. Well, I wasn't having it. The next morning, I hit the county courthouse. I met Dolores Hutchkins, the clerk, who had worked there for 30 years. She knew all the tricks. She pulled a thick file on Sunset Vista and handed it over. In it, I found something interesting. Brinth's company, Caldwell Premier Properties, received $45,000 in marketing consulting fees from Sunset Vista Construction, 3 weeks before the drainage plans were approved. Now, that's a smoking gun if I ever saw one. I was just getting started. I filed Freedom of Information requests for all HOA financial records. Then, I hired Dana Holbrook, an environmental attorney. Dana was the kind of lawyer who ate construction defect cases for breakfast. Dana spread my reports across her desk like battle plans. "This is prosecutorial gold," she said. "Let's go after them." We started an anonymous blog, Pinehurst Engineering Reality Check, where I posted all my flood projections, calculations, and photos. No names, just hard facts and physics. The responses? Surprising. Neighbors reached out, anonymously sharing their flood stories. The whole neighborhood had basement moisture problems they didn't want to admit. Brinth didn't take kindly to that. She sent me certified letters demanding I remove my rain gauges, calling them aesthetic violations. Then the real threats started coming. They were going after my blog, my rain gauges, everything. But I wasn't scared. I documented everything. Every threat, every fine, every attempt to silence me. Courts love technical evidence, and that's what I had in spades. Then came the big storm. 3 more basements flooded. Insurance companies started asking uncomfortable questions. Brinth? She was doubling down, organizing coffee and concerns, gatherings to spread anti-Garrett propaganda. She was trying to turn the neighbors against me. But Tabitha, my ally, was there. She asked Brinth if Sunset Vista had guaranteed adequate drainage. Brinth's nervous laugh gave her away. She knew the system was inadequate from day one. And that's when everything turned. Dana dug into Sunset Vista's finances and found out they were about to go bankrupt. They were dumping liability on the HOA before they dissolved, leaving the residents with no recourse for repairs. Brinth was about to bankrupt the entire neighborhood to cover up developer negligence. And she was doing it for profit. Fast forward to the storm. It hit just as predicted. Brinth refused to prepare the neighborhood. But we were ready. Tabitha's evacuation plan was in place, and when the storm hit, we didn't just survive. We thrived. While Brinth's gala event flooded, we had already moved vulnerable neighbors to safety. The community stood together, ready for the chaos, while Brinth's empire crumbled in real time. The storm didn't just break the drains, it broke Brinth. When the floodwaters hit, they exposed the truth. The truth about her fraud, about her negligence, about everything. The evidence was undeniable. Brinth's real estate empire? Gone. Her credibility? Shattered. And as for the neighborhood, we had justice. What's the lesson here? Sometimes, the person everyone calls difficult is just the only one paying attention to reality. When you build your empire on ignoring basic science, gravity always collects its debt. I guess what I'm saying is this. Next time someone tells you you're being dramatic, just remember that sometimes it's the ones who speak up who end up saving everyone. So, what's the craziest HOA drama you've seen? Drop your story below. I read every single one.